Hey folks, and welcome back to another episode of Straight Talk Whiskey. I'm Nick, here with you as usual. Now, I know I've been on a hiatus for the summer, but we are now back to our regularly scheduled programming of weekly whiskey reviews from around the world. So, we are back with you with Booker's Small Batch Bourbon. Uncut, unfiltered. It is bottled at 129.7 proof. And folks, the proof is in the bottle. So you get a really nice box here that is just unmistakable in the liquor store or wherever you purchase this from in stores. One thing to know is that they've got a really good sticky adhesive dot something that's in the back of this that keeps this pretty well secured, so it's not going to go anywhere. I wouldn't try it too much, but just know that getting it out can be a bit of a surprise if you're not ready for it. So let me try to put this plastic plexiglass or whatever the heck it is back in place without me looking at the front, having guidance. So you can tell it has been a little bit of a while because I just did this full review, had everything gone in one take. It was all great until I realized that my camera was out of memory and that also I had cut my head about above here, which would be a really interesting way to watch a review. But nonetheless, I am back here for you, hopefully not too inebriated by doing so. Because we are bottled at 64.85% ABV, because math is hard and I didn't want to divide the 129.7 in half there to do that for you. So let's look at the age. I don't think I've ever seen a more specific age of a whiskey on the bottle. So we've got 6 years, 7 months, and 23 days. Now, why 6 years, 7 months, 23 days? Well, over at Jim Beam, when they're making the Booker's Small Batch Bourbon, they're not really going by any set schedule that the whiskey will be aging. It will be ready when it's ready. So that's what we've got going on there. Like I said, uncut, unfiltered. That means they're not cutting it down with water before it's entering the barrel. It's not being filtered out by any weird, wacky processes that go on now in the spirits industry, trying to make things purer and cleaner looking, right? It's all about looks, it's all about appearance. It's not so much positively affecting the quality of the whiskey. So, yes, I'm going to add a little bit more because in the previous review I had added a little bit of water. So we're going to get that back up to roughly where it was prior, just by adding a touch bit more. Now, even if I can't replicate exactly the notes that I got when I was experiencing it without having added any water, I will be able to recall those notes for you. So, the color right off the bat, you can tell it's just beautiful mahogany wood, just rich amber coppery tones. It's like you've got a beautiful brisk autumn morning and all of those fresh fallen leaves of various autumn tones have just combined together just to create a beautiful cacophony of color in the glass in one hue, which is just absolutely beautiful to see, knowing that the spirit itself hasn't been colored or anything like that, obviously, but just knowing that that's a natural color. That's a lot of what other producers are trying to replicate, because to a consumer on the shelf, you get the badly misinformed folks who think that the color in the bottle is a direct correlation to the quality of the whiskey that's in the glass, and obviously we know that that's not always the case. So let's go in for the nose, shall we? Now, one of the first things that you're obviously going to get at that really high proof is the smell of the alcohol just burning the insides of your nostrils there. And it's like getting kicked in the head by a mule, really. And more so when you taste it. But nonetheless, breaking through, you are getting a little bit of vanilla bean notes coming through, some brown sugar notes, and a slight hint of wood smoke also in there. But a little bit of caramel. It's really nice. I suggest that you take a few passes at it because it's not going to come to you in one complete story the first time you take a pass at it. So, yep, the high alcohol content, obviously, but after a while, you can really get those nuances in there. So, I'm going to take a couple sips of this at having not added any water, right? Even though I've already put out the disclaimer that I had in the previous review, but trying to get that back up to whatever the strength was. Obviously, can't totally without a whole new glass, but anyway, you get it. Just full disclosure there. So here we go. Now, if you're shocked at the beginning because the mule kicked you in the head with the smell, be on your guard because that mule is coming around again to kick you again in the head with the taste because you are getting a strong punch of that alcohol kick in there. But once you can get past that, you get a real beautiful, rich, leathery, molasses, deep brown sugar, bourbon beauty in a glass. The one thing that I attribute to it most are the red hot dollars, the hot cinnamon candies, just a real fiery, overripe apple, sugar, really spicy, tart, all at the same time, pepperiness that's coming off and just lighting a flame up in y'all. So let's go ahead for another pass before we add a little bit of water. It's just absolutely delicious and everything that you could hope for a bourbon to be. Just absolutely has absorbed all the beautiful characteristics of the wood. Yeah, that the 6+ years that it's in maturation, but just picking up the oily notes there, deep brown sugar, vanilla, just absolutely phenomenal. But to get the true breadth of the experience that can be had with Booker's uncut, unfiltered small batch bourbon, you got to add a little bit of water in there. Now, you don't need a fancy carafe like I have here, but one of the things with adding water to your whiskey is that you're going to want your water to be roughly the same temperature as the drink that you want to enjoy. And typically, I would say most of the time you should opt for room temperature water because that's not going to change the characteristics too much of just the simple cutting a whiskey down, right? So if you had super cold water or something that you just taken out of your Brita or something like that, that's going to numb a lot of those flavors that you could potentially get out of it by adding room temperature water to it. So I would suggest just getting yourself something that you can add just a few drops in. And a little decanter like this is helpful, right? You don't need it. You could do a teaspoon or something like that. But it allows to give me a little bit more control over my pours. Also, I drink coffee like an addict. So, not shaking when I'm, dropping water into the glass and dropping water all around it is a perk for sure. You could also get yourself one of the Angel Share glass. angelshareglass.co.uk or www.google it yourself and find it. I'm not paid to promote this at all. So, but this is a great option if you're really looking for precision in your water dropping. I guess you could also use it to put whiskey in your friend's glass. Make sure that they're not getting more than they need. But you can literally just add drop by drop by drop. And I want to drop the whole thing in this just because I can be a little bit more generous with water with this whiskey. Now, it's not always about proof, okay? The 129.7 or whatever it was proof that's in this glass doesn't necessarily mean that it needs a ton of water because it's that high up there. There's some whiskeys that are really high in alcohol content, but they don't need an overly ton of water because they're more delicate. More often than not, with older whiskeys, it needs a little bit less water because the flavor profiles in there can be a little bit more delicate and sensitive to having water in it. So you just got to play it by whatever whiskey that you have. With this one, I can be a little bit generous, but for those really intricate pours and really fragile in a way, having a whiskey dropper or something like that just gives me real control over how much I put in there. You see other people use teaspoons or something like that, which are great options too. I just don't trust myself not to, crack a glass with the teaspoon as I'm like trying to do a review, right? Or spilling it all over the place. So the dropper works for me, and whatever works for you, obviously, is what you can go with. So anyway, let's go back in and see first the nose, and then we'll go in for the taste. All right, now that the mule has settled down for a nice dinner and is going off to sleep, he's not going to kick you in the head on this go-around had you added sufficient water to it. So now what's breaking through, the vanilla bean note that I was getting before is transferring into more of a confectionery, vanilla, bakery, sweet note that's coming across there. It's really nice, almost like a frosted donut or something like that. I had to think of it because I haven't had one in so long. But that's sort of the vibe that I'm getting. You're also getting a little bit of ripe fruit, some berries, definitely that caramel note that's typical with bourbons is lingering around. Cinnamon, brown sugar, still there on the fore. Just beautiful. All right, let's go in for the taste. It's so nice once you've tamed the alcohol content. You don't want to get to the point where it tastes like you know what Coca-Cola is supposed to taste like, and now you're tasting something that's like super flat or something like that. You don't want to go to that extreme, but you want to get to a point where you're just taming those notes enough. So now the alcohol bite that I was getting before is translated into a really hot, spicy, peppery note, just like cracked peppercorns or something like that, which is really nice. Not like green pepper or anything, but thinking more on the spicy side of things. So that's really nice to have because now you can experience all the nuances in there without having your tongue, lit up and all your taste buds being fried, from having that alcoholic punch. And it's super delicious. You know, this version, because there's different years, obviously, bottlings of this, even at different times during the year. So they sort of have the theme going off of it that translate into some sort of a tribute for Booker Noe. And so this one's called Off Your Rocker because he was known to be called Off His Rocker sometimes, but also would just really love enjoying, whether it be at work or at home, just sitting in his rocker enjoying, a nice glass of whiskey. And that's really sort of where this takes me to, even though I don't have the front porch or the exact bitterness and cold of fall just yet. It's a few weeks around the corner, but it just takes you there instantly. It's nice to just sit back, relax, reflect, and most importantly, take the time to do so. Time is such a valuable thing that we really take for granted these days, and that time that we often have. I know folks try to say that they're so busy and all that sort of thing, but a lot of times you catch yourself just getting caught up in things that don't entirely matter. So scrolling through Facebook, Instagram, that sort of thing, looking at, different things here and there that detract time away from, things that you could be, really enjoying. And not to say that those things are bad or not enjoyable or something like that, but it's just nice to just cut out the distractions, pour yourself, a nice whiskey and just sort of reflect and that sort of thing. Just, ask thanks for the things that you've got around you. Something that I like to do every now and then just to kind of keep things positive, because there's so much negativity in the world, and whiskey for me is something that can really just sort of mellow me out, get me back to my senses, just have a real enjoyable evening, right? You can go further than that and have a wild time, which I don't recommend. It can be easily abused, and so there's a delicate balance to those things that we find enjoyable, obviously. But anyway, not to get too much off on a tangent yet, because it is about the whiskey. And I don't want to keep you here all night. So I hope you're enjoying something. Maybe you're enjoying a different version of Booker's yourself, or maybe this one. If you are, let me know. Let me know what you're drinking, what you're up to, what you'd like to see reviewed next. If you haven't subscribed and you've made it this long, please subscribe. Tell your friends. It really helps us out, especially since YouTube has demonetized channels not meeting certain requirements. So not having the 1,000 subscriber yet is keeping us from continuing our monetization. All of these whiskeys I pay for myself to put on the table for you here and review. So just know that that's there. I'm here for you. I'm here to sort of just indulge in my passion for this really beautiful elixir that we have graced with us on this planet. So with that being said, I will see you next time. So if you're going to drink responsibly, and have a good one.